Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, today's video is going to be a bit of a hiccup in the entire situation. It's going to be talking about upgrading your ships. Now, obviously, I know that a lot of the people who watch the channel and hear these types of advices are actually people with high-level ships already. You're already generally people who are going to be jumping in the game past T7, so that means you're in battle cruisers. You might even be hitting T9 or hitting T10, so that means you might be advancing way beyond where I've ever advanced before in the forms of carriers, dreadnoughts, and freighters. But these are some of the things that need to be outlined on the very same topic that I am talking about. And what I'm talking about is actually expanding the way in which you move to your next ship. Now, for some of you, this may seem very simple and easy to understand. For others, this may seem just like a bunch of nonsense, and I'm being honest with it. That is how you generally will see this. So, let's go on to explain the crazy stuff that I'm about to explain to you. So, first of all, when it comes to playing Eve Echoes and advancing yourself in terms of ships. Remember, the first ship you start off with is a frigate. It's part of the tutorial series. By the time you're done with the tutorial series, the free points that you get will tick you into level 2 and level 3 almost instantly. It's that easy for you to go through if you have Omega Duo. So if you're a paid player, you are ticking up really quick from the get-go. If you aren't a paid player, by the time you reach level 2 or level 3, it's about a week in, and then it's 2 weeks for the next level without Omega Duo. Once you reach level 4, then level 5 and level 6 become easier for you. Level 3, then level 4, level 5 and level 6 coming very quickly, with the most being about 2 months between those levels. And then you get level 7, which is just above it. And no matter what you do, that is how this advancement system works. It's just these small little ticks up the ladder. But as we are speaking right now, you're going to notice that I'm not showing much of this because there isn't really a reason to show it, because you need to understand this. You need to understand your fighting style. Now, I know that on my channel, if you go back, there's the how-to series with everything that I learned about Eve. It explains just about anything and everything you need to know. Actually, there's some videos from the how-to series that were never published. I found out yesterday that they never went live. Although I planned almost 3 months worth of releases in the how-to series. That's something which happens every once in a while. A failure on my side, which I overlooked, and unfortunately they're not there. So one of the things you need to understand about your advancement through the levels is understanding where you are going. If you started off as a missile pilot and you're going to change over to drones, remember that means that you're going to have a profession change. It also means you are losing proficiency, it means you are losing effectiveness. All of these things take a knock from your change of weapons. If you're going to dual wield weapons, remember that means that you have proficiency enough in one weapon and you have a similar proficiency in the other. You don't get to master both at the same level. You also end up with a greater failure down the line when you reach the end game, because you will have to respec your skills, which is very expensive for the most part. Sorry about that. So let's get into the nitty-gritties of moving up past the first stage, as it would be. So, moving up past the first stage, you're going to need something as simple as putting up a little bit of extra firepower on your ship. Like for example, I'm using a Naga. Now, if I upgrade into T8, I can now take on a Naga 2. If I upgrade to T10, I can take on a Naga 3. Now, the Naga 3 will be a fantastic ship. It has a great long-range access for it to fire. It has more of a sniper skill because it gives you more range, but it could also be used in a brawler form because of how powerful the ship is in general. Now, these are things that I had to analyze to get a handle on. And the same would apply to just about anybody else who decides to take on a ship. You need to know what you are aiming at. Example, with the Naga, if I'm going to upgrade to the Naga 2, I must understand that I'm going to be going from 7 weapon slots to 8 weapon slots. That means I'm going to increase my DPS by that much. That means I can keep my range with a slight increase to my damage output. I'm also getting an increase in hull armor and an increase in armor resistance. Not armor resistance, sorry, in shield resistance. So I can take a lot more damage on the face tank. I also have a greater power grid and a greater recovery of power. This all adds to a more efficient fighting method instead of hanging back and fighting from a distance for long prolonged periods of time like my Naga does. As you can see in this little clip, obviously you can't see a lot of it. You can see that I'm fighting a T10 at the most, although it doesn't show 10 on the ships. I'm fighting the T10 and I'm actually holding a very long range position. The reason is this here increases the amount of resistance my ship has. I lose a lot of power because my weapons use energy, and I also manage to keep my shield up as much as possible so that my ship doesn't break. But as time progresses, because I don't have that crazy figure of power like I was talking about from the Naga 2, I can't keep up the requirement of the shield because I don't have enough resistance. I also don't have enough energy in my primary grid to keep myself at max power. So the two actually impact me negatively and they pull down my effectiveness in my ship. The other thing is that in terms of fittings, this ship used to have a different fit in the past, and I was forced to reiterate it into this fit here. Okay. Sorry about that. One of the next things to note about changing your ship is going to be the small little subtle details when it comes to your ship. The handling of your ship changes a lot just with the slightest change in speed. Example, if you are changing from a Naga to a Rook. Now, a Rook is a much more powerful battleship, right? It is much more powerful in the fact that its armor can handle a lot more. You could actually tackle at a much closer range. You don't have to worry so much about small little details, and you also get away with a lot in terms of your grid. Your power grid is a lot larger, so you have large shield regen, you have large capabilities, but you also have large vulnerabilities. Remember, you are easily pinned, you take long to warp, you have slower turn times. All of this here affect your ship as well. You need to take this into consideration when you take it into fights. Now, I upgraded to a Raven because my primary ship is actually the Drake. I'm doing a double system, and as I said, this isn't good for your progress in the game. Once I reach T10, this is all going to bite me in the back. And yeah, I know that I'm speaking very metaphorically right now, but yeah, that is how it goes. You have to be prepared to sacrifice some part of your enjoyment in the game to move along the right path within your tree of experience. Now, I was using the Naga purely for the sake of range, because I was fighting hard to fight missions that my Drake couldn't tank, and I needed more firepower, so I went with the Naga. Although the Drake outputs more firepower, it also takes a severe amount of damage in the close range situation, and it can't stand up to the enemies that I needed it to stand up to, which is why I ended up going for the Naga. It was a good way to solo things like Amar section ships, because Amar is a real difficult situation for me as a player. I struggle a lot with fighting those faction cruisers and battleships. So not faction cruisers, that particular set. So because of that, I decided to use a longer range and fire with the long distance weapons to keep myself out of easy hit range. The next thing to note with all of this craziness is going to be, this is a recording from YouTube, as you can see. I'm not going to continue on showing it because obviously this is a ton of editing. This takes 24 hours to render, and I obviously don't want to render this every single time that I want to make a video with the same backdrop, and this didn't need its own particular footage to be productive. Okay, so the next thing to note on the side of upgrades is going to be your particular types of upgrades to your skills. Now, your skill trees are, as I said, very important for pulling you up. Now, say for example, you're moving up from a Drake to a Raven. Now, that is a different story altogether. That means that you have an increase in power along with an increase in class. That means two things change at the same time. You are less effective on a smaller range ship, but you are more effective on the bigger ships who put out more firepower. So you're capable of suppressing enemies a lot faster than you were previously. That is the whole beauty to what I'm talking about. All of these things need to be assessed by you before you even think of fighting another enemy moving forward. Okay. So another thing to also think about when it comes to these subtle changes that I'm talking about is things as simple as increasing one or two of your ship's weapon types. So if you were using MK7 because you didn't have enough to afford a Republic or a C-type, you can always now reduce the need that you have by pulling off a MK9, right? Obviously, that isn't a big change, it's a small change. It affects you with minor little things overall in that entire situation. So yeah, that's basically what I'm saying for this part. It's a small thing to actually have to think about in the long term of your gameplay. So moving on from this, the next thing which becomes of critical importance when it comes to upgrading your ships is going to be how you utilize these subtle changes. A web from the difference between a Predator and a Republic is quite a small difference. It's about 3% in slowdown. If you count that 3% as nothing, then you don't understand what you are doing. When you slow down a ship, you ensure that they can't evade your firepower. Your firepower will hit them more steadily. They're going to take more damage. You're going to have a higher chance of crit against them. And that is really what you want to do. A stationary ship will take crits every single time. A moving ship will not take crits every single time because they will be able to evade. And a ship that's moving directly at you can swerve slightly to the right or left to actually evade a little bit of the firepower. So if you are fighting a stationary ship, it's quite easy. You just hammer at them and you do excess damage. And when you are fighting a mobile ship, you have to adjust to it as well because of the way things work. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of this craziness, and that is going to be knocking out some of your enemies in different orders. Now, you may have previously seen me attacking the biggest damage ship first and then moving on to other vessels. But when you are in a large ship, remember your mobility is really limited. If you need to get out of the fight, it takes you quite a while. You need 6 to 8 seconds. This here may change your order of assault. You may want to take out debuffs first, then you may want to take out assaulting vessels, then you may want to take out buffing vessels, or you may want to go debuffs, buffing vessels, assault vessels in that order to get you through. That is something which is a very big possibility for most players who play the game, and it is something that you have to consider when it comes to each type of ship. If you're a brawler, debuffs make a massive difference against you because you put out a massive amount of fire on the front line. If you're going to take reduced damage, you're going to obviously have a massive advantage on that close range front. You need to put all of that into your calculation when upgrading classes. Now, I know this doesn't really come through to be a crazy big experience for you, but yeah, it does have an impact at the end of the day, and you need to think about it when you're actually going for upgrades on your vessels. So yeah, those are the things that you need to think about. So what I said is, the first thing is, whether you're a dual wielder or single wielder, you need to think about the fact that you're going to have to respec. The next thing you're going to have to think about is the fact that dual wielding weapons is a negative to you overall. Your type of fittings when upgrading ship classes, your upgrade path for your ships, and whether or not that type of play actually suits you is something else altogether that you have to think about. If you're somebody who is very patient and has a lot of time to sit with your phone, being a brawler will be perfect for you. If you're a person who is very impatient and you don't have time to sit with your phone, brawlers may not be the right ships for you. You may want to go with the range on the long orbits. You may want to take something else besides a close range brawl. Example, you can take something as simple as a Raven and use it as a 60-kilometer brawling ship. Now, obviously, that doesn't sound very interesting for that ship. You're going to put on a lot of damage on the big ships, but the small ships are going to be a pain for you no matter what. You're going to knock out all the big ships quite easily, and the small ships are going to impact you with massive amounts of damage all the time. So yeah, there goes my little rant on that part in all of this craziness. And I know there are some things that I haven't even touched on that need to be spoken about when it comes to how you effectively use your ships. Those things are beyond my scope to actually explain to you anymore. The reason is the game has changed quite a bit, and it will be changing again soon. As I said, they're combating the taboo of a balance change again. I don't understand NetEase. At this point, they have a very small community. They may be yammering for change, but giving them a change that is going to reduce their community again is really a bad idea. I don't think that NetEase learned from it in the past. I've had a very big enunciation against them bringing a balance change ever again in the game because of how badly it affected them in the past. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to wait for the balance change to hit, see how it affects the gameplay style that I do, and then I'll give you a report on it at that time. So for now, this is all from me, and I will be seeing you all in the next one. Have a good day.